開第二次嘅會議啦，即係請大家就座。
Let's begin the second session. First, I would like to welcome our deputations and also members from different sectors. Thank you for coming to provide your views. Because of time constraints, I'm sorry that each person will only have 3 minutes. I also want you to pay attention that you are not going to be protected by the Electrical Powers and Privilege Ordinance. And for those who attend the meeting, please note our security measures. The information has already been sent to you as attachments to the letters from the Secretary. If you need any assistance, you can obtain the notice from our staff. You should also see this earpiece. Channel 0 is floor, Channel 1 is Cantonese, Channel 2 is English. If you need simultaneous interpretation, you can use the earpiece.
Hearing. Thank you for sharing with us your comment and your insight. Please remind that your speech would not be covered by the Power and Privilege Ordinance, and I have to apologize that because there are 146 deputation that will speak in the meeting today. Therefore, your speaking time will be limited to 3 minutes. There would be an alarm clock to remind you when time is running out, and please stop by then, because any extension of your time would mean the deduction of the time for the later comers. And please also be reminded that the safety measure for the conducting of the meeting that is in the letter to you when you accept the invitation, and a copy of that is on your desk. And also for simultaneous interpretation, please make use of the earpiece. Channel 0 is the floor sound, Channel 1 is Cantonese, and Channel 2 is English. 咁就喺呢一節出席嘅官員呢，仍然係
We still have Mr. Wong, the Secretary for the Environment, Mr. Howard Chen, Deputy Director for EPD, Ms. Dr. Ellen Chen, Assistant Director of EPD, and also Mr. Au, Assistant Director. Mr. Paul Zimmerman.
Members, we opposed the 3+1 proposal. The objective should be reduction in waste before incineration and not simply the volume arriving at landfills. A coherent plan is needed which clearly sets out the logistics and space requirements of the waste flow. The current policy puts waste facilities with different functions across the territory, assuming separation and stockpiling at source, and independent collection and processing logistics for the different waste types. This, to use a pun, is a waste of space at our homes, buildings, and on our roads. Let me explain. The core aspects of recycling is sorting and stockpiling, which are critical to creating value out of waste. One glass bottle has no value, tons of clean glass has value. But sorting and stockpiling requires time and lots of space. Today, a few hours after waste is created, it disappears in a landfill. Tomorrow, with government plans, it's going to be burned. But if we assume just 1 day for sorting and stockpiling, we will need space for processing 18,000 tons. Full separation at source would demand each household and institution to increase the footprint of waste bins at least tenfold. At my home, 1 bin has become 2 plus 2 square meters outside. At CTU, the space required has increased at least tenfold, with a covering a former parking area. It also requires manpower and the organization of different collectors at different times and schedules. We live in a city without space in our kitchens, in our buildings, in our districts. It's unrealistic and inefficient to expect full sorting and stockpiling at source. Government's plan for different facilities, for different functions littered over the territory is wrong. Food waste goes left, mixed waste goes right, bottles go north, paper goes south. It's a waste of space. We also see the waste going through multiple hands, from collection points to transfer stations to incinerator and then finally to landfill. The same waste handled several times. What we need are integrated waste facilities for each catchment area in the territory where sorting and stockpiling of recycles take place, Non-recyclables are used to generate energy. The energy is used for powering the local sorting facilities. The ash and leftovers are disposed on-site where the facilities are. We propose that these integrated waste facilities are created at our existing landfills and, if necessary, one new one. This logistics plan goes together with a consumer campaign educating how to separate wet and dry waste. In parallel, government can implement waste charging and make sure that producers are charged for packaging, such as plastic bottles. Importantly, Chair, this plan must be supported with a revamp of government. A waste authority must be created, combining the waste disposal, collection, cleansing authorities and the 3,000 collection points of the FEHD with the collection, processing, landfill and enforcement authorities of the EPD and the enforcement and cleansing authorities left with the highways and lands departments. I hope this comprehensive plan will be agreed to.
Thank you. We have the next speaker, Mr. Lam Sean from Hong Kong Professionals and Senior Executives Association. Our landfills are about to be exhausted. In dealing with MSW, it is a very pressing matter. Our waste management infrastructure is lacking in capacity. We are very concerned about this. Without viable alternatives, we urge the government to implement ASAP the 1 incinerator and 3 landfill option with further expansions to our landfills. The current proposal concerning the level of expansion, perhaps it is beyond the actual need level. We need to find alternatives to alleviate the pressure on our landfills, but we need to ensure that the incinerator facility is up to Euro standards. We also need to obtain support of local residents and provide ancillary facilities so as to promote the local economies. For the longer term, the government needs to identify options or technologies that are more green. We need to identify new technologies, begin research work, and enhance the efficiencies of our landfills. Waste management technologies should be explored. For example, the plasma gasification option. During construction period, we should have pilot tests of such new technologies in order to ensure smooth operation of landfill facilities and ensure sustainability. We must step up promotion and education for the public and promote reduction at source. We also need to do waste sorting and recycling. We need to charge more for construction waste and charge by quantity. We need to implement the organic recycling centers work as soon as possible and promote the development of the recycling industry. We need to provide land to such operators so that they can do sorting and provide reusable facilities so that reusable resources will not be wasted. More importantly, we need to step up communication and coordination among government departments. Perhaps we can set up task forces to provide views on waste management policies and coordinate publicity and educational efforts. In conclusion, the association believes that we must introduce advanced waste management technologies and implement fee charging systems. Thank you. Next, Mr. Simon Liu from Kaden Construction Ltd. Thank you. I represent Kaden Construction Ltd. to support the EPD in terms of the 1 incinerator and 3 landfill proposal. Population is growing and the landfills are becoming exhausted. Right now, there is no new way to deal with waste in Hong Kong, so the expansion of the landfills would be the only viable option. The Environmental Bureau, in response to the request from the community, has proposed some improvement options. I think the proposal is already very satisfactory, providing further improvements to the environment. the latest incineration technology is already very mature. In Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, it is widely adopted. It is the key technology to deal with waste. In recent years, I have not heard about negative impacts on their environments caused by the incinerator. I do not hear protests from the local residents. So other than resolving the waste problem, we're talking about recycling resources, reuse waste, and also turning waste into energy so as to benefit the local residents. There are only a limited number of ways to deal with waste: recycling, reuse, and waste reduction. But at the end, we need landfills and incineration facilities. Our company, in the past decades, has actively participated in environmental infrastructure construction. We have witnessed the growth and development of Hong Kong. Recently, green standards have been upgrading from time to time. As a local person, I fully support the Bureau's work. Some years ago, we had many incinerators and landfills. Because such facilities have become obsolete and because of extortion of the facilities, they have been left idle. Now, land is limited. With growing population, we cannot identify new sites for landfills. The only possible option is to expand the existing landfills, and for the longer term, the incinerating option is the only option. I urge the Bureau and the contractors in the future to introduce the most advanced technologies to ensure the environmental standards. Ms. Deborah Lee from Leader Civil Engineering Corporation Limited. I support the Bureau's option on 1 incinerator and 3 landfills with huge production of waste. The TKO landfill is about to be saturated and the other 2 will be exhausted very soon. Expansion of landfills is a pressing matter, and it is the most effective way to resolve this pressing issue. Concerning such expansion plans, the government has widely consulted the public. Different views have been presented, for example, on waste reduction. We agree that must be done. However, this may not be effective right away. It may also affect our economic development. With the growth in population and economic development, waste volume will only increase. So these measures may not be effective in the longer run. We must consider expansion of landfills and also the incinerator to truly resolve the problem. Incineration of waste is the key method used around the world. Japan, Taiwan, and Denmark incinerate the majority of the waste. The relevant technologies are very advanced, minimizing impacts on the environment. And in the process of incineration, energies can be created for reuse. Land is indeed limited in Hong Kong, and it requires less land to build an incinerator. So this is the effective way in solving the waste problem in the longer run. In recent years, construction costs continues to rise. If we cannot implement the proposal, the taxpayers in Hong Kong cannot accept the piling up of waste. We must address the waste issue from different angles. Other than implementing measures and policies, we need to step up education and involve every member of the community. We need to also provide the necessary infrastructure. The proposal from the government is well balanced. We need to identify consensus in the community and implement it as soon as possible. Next, Ms. Richie Poon from Waikiki Construction and Transportation Company. On behalf of our company, I would like to support the Bureau's proposal. We need to expand the 3 landfills and construct an incinerator. We support for 3 major reasons. First of all, the 3 existing landfills will be saturated very soon. we're facing a situation that is very pressing. In order to support the existing waste management facilities, we must expand the landfills. Secondly, landfill expansion can resolve solid waste problem in the shorter run, but over-reliance is not the solution for the longer term. We should choose the incineration option, which takes up less land, and it is also more effective. Incineration technologies are widely recognized around the world. We should introduce advanced facilities and also construct an incinerator that will turn waste into energy with proper management and environmental monitoring. The impacts will be minimized to the nearby residents. Thirdly, just like many contractors in the industry, we have to deal with construction waste. The construction industry is always attaching great importance to greening. We organize green talks from time to time, urging our staff to become more aware about energy saving. At various construction sites, we already do recycling and collection of waste, but plenty of waste is still transported to landfills. We do not want to develop landfills in a manner that is not sustainable, because that will also lead to higher costs for our operation. At the end, of course, will be the public. Combining all these three arguments, we would like to stress one more time, we support the construction of the incinerator. This is the only way that is sustainable. We may need longer time for such construction. We also need the expansion of landfills. While the construction industry has been blooming, we need to set up proper waste management facilities at the same time. We urge the government to adopt this two-pronged approach and to implement this action blueprint and monitor the landfill situation at the same time. The government also need to work harder in terms of addressing the concerns from the public so as to create benefits to the community.
So Mr. John Schofield, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is John SCHOFIELD. I'm an 11-year resident of South Lantau and a 20-year resident of Hong Kong. I would like to expand on just one of the main reasons, the many reasons I have little confidence in the waste management strategy as presented, and I'm strongly opposed to the proposal to build a polluting giant incinerator in our beautiful Islands district, as well as unnecessary landfill expansion. The main reason is because the whole strategy is based on, the main reason for my lack of confidence is because the whole strategy is based on grossly inaccurate and misleading data about Hong Kong's current waste handling system, if we can call it that. In the famous blueprint, which is being referred to, the claim is made that Hong Kong is already achieving a recycling rate of 48% of the MSW, municipal solid waste, generated. Yet, if you look at the figures presented in that paper, it's impossible to substantiate this claim. On page 2, we're told that 8,979 tons of waste goes to landfill, out of a total on page 5, that 9,656 tons of waste is generated by the Hong Kong population. Any P3 student can tell you that that represents an actual recycling rate or reduction rate of just 7% using simple arithmetic. Further, this panel was told on the 26th of July last year that the amount of waste recovered is derived from the weight of recyclables exported. The net figure for exports given in the same paper for 2012 was just 1,920 tons. So again, if we add that back to the amount of waste going to landfill, we come up with a recycling or recovery rate of just 17.6%, better than under the first calculation, but still, I think, just pathetically and totally unacceptably low. If we look around us, we look around on the streets, the villages, the housing estate, and we see that the few and inadequate and badly managed three-color recycling bins represent only a token gesture towards the 3 R's: recycling, reduction, reuse. Even worse, the EPZ's own website show that the recycling effort is declining because the amount of waste recycled or exported in 2010 was 3,600 tonnes, and in 2012 it was down to 2,100 tonnes. So what is happening? So despite all the assurances that we're going to get more emphasis on waste reduction and recycling, nothing is happening. Therefore, I urge you to reject this proposal.
Next, Mr. Jude Chow of the Hong Kong Green Strategy Alliance. Thank you. Incinerators are well developed overseas, and the technology is such that the negative impact on the environment is substantially reduced. That's why we agree Hong Kong should introduce advanced incineration technology. For the action blueprint, in Taiwan, Singapore, is mentioned that more than 40% of municipal solid waste is treated by incineration. In Japan, the percentage is as high as 70%. And there are over 1,000 incinerators in operation in Japan. From the point of view of addressing the waste problem, incineration seems to be a viable option. Now, waste of low heat value is incombustible. We understand that in places like Japan, they have a comprehensive system of source separation at source. If Hong Kong is to build a new incinerator, recyclable and incombustible waste should be separated at source before waste is sent to incineration plants. This will maximize sustainable use of resources. We also support the extension of landfills. If the incineration plant is improved, maybe in terms of policies and initiatives like municipal solid waste charging scheme and organic waste treatment facilities, if all these plans are realized, the incinerator also can handle about 3,000 tons. There will still be another 10,000 tons of waste going to the landfills. In Hong Kong, we know that by 2019, all the landfills will be exhausted unless we have a better choice. Otherwise, there is need for Hong Kong to extend the landfills. And we know, of course, waste cannot be recycled 100%. There is still a need for landfills in the long run. Landfills should be used for the disposal of stable waste, like ash from incinerators and waste that cannot be recycled. Now, Hong Kong should is moving towards reducing municipal solid waste in landfill that accounts for about 40%. For food waste in landfill, it could be decomposed, and then there will be leachate and gas and odor generated. So we should consider restrictions on landfills. Untreated food waste should not be allowed in the landfills. That will help to extend the lifespan of landfills. It will also enhance the efficiency of incineration. In fact, in Europe and Asia, this is rather common practice. In 2005 in Korea, they have banned the disposal of food waste at landfills, and their landfills do not accept waste that could not be biodegradable. So thank you, Mr. Chow. Next, Mr. Chen Si-lut of the Labour Party. Now, as a matter of urgency, they will deal with municipal solid waste. We see that the current infrastructure for dealing with MSW is far from adequate. And we are considering various options like landfills, incineration, recycling, and reuse. But in the past, we cannot fully restore landfill, and so we should keep landfill to a minimum. The existing landfills are about to be exhausted in the long run. We need to have public education to change the habits of the public, but that takes a long time for results to be seen. So that's why landfill is an option when there are no other choices for the time being. Now, the 3 landfill and 1 incinerator approach has sparked a great heated debate in the community. we see that we may have no choice but to extend the landfills for the time being. But if we just focus on landfill and incineration and we don't consider options, we will actually just delay the problem. Now, for restore landfill, the land use is limited, so we should keep landfills to minimum. There should be other supporting measures to extend the lifespan of landfills. We should also reduce the scope of extension of landfills. We must make sure that landfills would no longer take municipal solid waste that could be recycled. We want to extend the lifespan of landfills, and there should be mechanical treatment so that waste volume is first reduced. That means waste could first be compacted. And we must also reduce the emission of toxic gas and so on. Now, for incineration, yes, there are merits, but at the same time, it may also destroy waste that could be recycled, so we have to be careful. If we look at the experience in Taiwan and Korea, they've also got producers' responsibility schemes and other recycling measures that, as a package together with promoting incineration. So incineration is not just replacement of the landfill option. We need to have recycling, source separation, and so on. That's why the Labour Party agrees that as landfill is about to reach exhaustion, we need to consider all options. Now, there is a green fund with $2 billion, so we should build more waste reception centres for recycling. And we should also charge for waste, and waste levy should be used for promoting green disposal of waste. Only then could we make the most of our resources. Thank you.
Educator of EagleOwl On Lantau.
Yeah, hi, Chairman. Did you get the books that
Yes.
Yeah, they've been passed around to legislators?
Yes.
Thank you. So, thank you. Good. So this is the book that's been donated by the Dolphin Conservation Society by Samuel Hume, and it gives reference to the finless dolphins. May I say that also that I've been living on Lantau since 1997. My main concern is about the reclamation of the incinerator next to Shek Kwao Chow and the effects it will have on the marine life, and in particular the finless porpoises. Only a few thousand years ago, Hong Kong used to be the home of mammals such as tigers, elephants, leopards, rhinos, flying squirrels and many more wonderful animals. However, due to the growth of Hong Kong and with its inevitable continued development, all these species and many more have become locally extinct. Every living thing reaches its tipping point, where either through increased habitat loss or other factors, animals are pushed to extinction. And that means that they are lost forever. Over the last few thousand years, human beings have been responsible for thousands of extinctions, both plants and animals. This period in history is a crucial time for many species survival and for the conservation of species to take priority before any development is considered. Simply, we are losing these animals and plants for selfish greed of human beings, of some human beings. This period of time that we are living in has been named the 6th mass extinction of species. In China, the Yangtze River dolphin lived on this planet for millions of years, and due to selfish development by man, they are now believed to be extinct and gone forever. The pink dolphin, whose habitat is the waters of North Lantau, Dayusan, is being severely affected by building the airport, the Zhuhai Hong Kong Macau Bridge and the proposed third runway. The numbers of pink dolphins in Hong Kong waters have fallen alarmingly by more than half since 2003. This is a very small period of time, and these pink dolphins, who were once the mascot of Hong Kong during the handover, may well become locally extinct in a few years. The Yangtze narrow-ridged finless porpoise is critically endangered and may also become extinct in the next few years. And on to the main purpose of my talk as well. The finless porpoises that are found in the waters around Shek Kwao Chow are designated with the status of vulnerable according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the Red List of threatened species, and is a very shy mammal. Vessel traffic and noise pollution appear to affect it to a far greater degree than the pink dolphins. With a small population of these wonderful creatures, the reclamation, along with the incinerator, if the approval goes ahead, factors like this will cause the loss of habitat, increased water vessel traffic, noise pollution, particularly sea pollution, where particulate pollution will inevitably have a devastating effect on these mammals. If the reclamation along with incinerator goes ahead, then the pinus porpoises face 365 days of constant sea vessels bringing rubbish and cause deaths from collisions.
跟住下一位係方國珊女士。
唔該，主席。首先呢，我
Next, Ms. Christine FONG. I'm in support of disposal facilities of high temperature. And there should be supporting measures like a reduction of rates and so on. There should be incentives to promote, to support waste charging scheme. Now, waste affect millions of people in Hong Kong in terms of odor, PM 2.5 and so on. Island East, Hang Fa Chun, Tai Kwu Shing, and then in Ching Shui Wan, Tan Kwai, Kwan Konan and so on. All these places are affected. We are against the bundling of the three landfills together because the Cheung Kwan O landfill is so close to residential development. It's right by our doorstep. In 1978, you started the landfills there. We've had the landfill there for 37 years. In one of the electrical papers, we see that in 2006, the administration pointed out that the Cheung Kwan O has been in operation for the Cheung Kwan O has landfill's lifespan of 13 years, so should have been closed before. And then in Edward Yao's era, they say the landfill will be further extended to 2014. Now Wang Kum Sing is now proposing to extend it from 2013 to 2015. So how much longer do Cheung Kwan O residents have to put up with the PM 2.5 and odor before we see the final completion of the landfill here? Now, there is actually a time frame for the landfill. You're supposed to cease operation by a certain date, but you keep extending the landfill, and the public feel cheated. The New York government in 2013 already paid $100 million to 12 children. 3 of them have actually suffered blood cancer or leukemia, but the family members say there's no point paying us compensation because our child has died. So you cannot, health cannot be sacrificed or cannot be exchanged for, say, medals and other incentives. Now, actually, there was an EIA that said that the landfill should be closed in 2013, but you ignored the EIA. You went for another EIA that suited you. If you keep disregarding the health of Cheung Kwan O residents, then you're just forcing Cheung Kwan O residents to take you to court. We propose that the government build a landfill in outer lying islands, like what they do in Singapore. 8 kilometers from Hong Kong, there's an island where you could build landfills like the Joy Hong Kong Macau Bridge, one Raglan Island. Instead of just building hotels there, you should build something useful. Then next, we have Mr. Chen Kai-wai, the alliance to close on closing the Cheung Kwan O landfill. Today, we shouldn't just be talking about environmental protection or cost. We're talking about a large number of Cheung Kwan O residents who have suffered for a long time because of the landfills. So we still sacrifice our interests. We talk about the people here. We're not talking about cost. In 2005, we found that there was an odor problem. We complained. First, the government wouldn't admit to it. The district council wouldn't admit to it. Eventually, they had to because there was evidence. And then since then, we've kept opposing extension of landfill. The odor problem and the traffic and transport problems never been resolved. And the government kept coming up with improvement measures like hosing down the street, cleaning the vehicles and so on. Every time, it's the same thing that you just repackage them and you think that we're all ignorant and forgetful. So you say the same thing every 2 years. If these measures are being effective, then you wouldn't have received more than 2,000 complaints last year. So the facts speak louder than the words. That is, the government is incompetent, is not able to resolve the problems. If the government is sincere, you shouldn't just add an air quality monitoring station there without informing the district council. And what about those residential developments affected? You've never actually gone there to check. Before there was this late night inspection team, but no more. Cheung Kwan O was not inhabited a long time ago, but now there's a dense population. In the past 3 years, over 12 sites have been sold. And you keep moving people to the southern part of Cheung Kwan O where there's the highest number of complaints. So you're just making more suffer. Now, if you have effective measures to reduce the nuisance, then you come and convince us. Don't just tell lies and try to sell this to us under lies, because you know residents have better things to do than to keep opposing you. Now there will be government building to be built there. I think you should put the Environment Bureau there, and then the Environment Bureau could just open the window and you'll see how fresh the air is. Especially the Secretary's office, it must be put there and must face south. Because when there's a southeasterly wind, 80% of the time you'll hear the odor. So your office must face south. Otherwise, you won't be able to smell the odors. And you know you can enjoy the fresh air there. Now, you work there 8 hours. You smell the odor for 8 hours, but we live there 24 hours a day. So you can see how we suffer. And if you can address the odor problem, the traffic problem, then you can come back here and talk about it. Otherwise, you can't steamroll this through.
保持安靜，否則你就
Please keep quiet, otherwise you are interfering with the speech of delegates. Next, Mr. Wong Yu Sing. Thank you. I'm a Cheung Kwan O resident. Now, when I drive there, you know, like Whampoa Road and so on, it's always full of sand and debris along the road. Every time when I called up the EPD to complain, they just said, oh, we'll come back to you later. Even they say that the street is being cleaned, the next day it's the same old problem. My observation is that every year there are about 4,000 vehicles going to the landfill, and especially you know, trucks carrying construction debris, and the debris falls all over the street. My windscreen's been smashed twice, and the body of my car has been dented as well. Actually, I feel threatened, you know, my personal safety and driving safety. The EPD, is it really doing something so effective? How come every time when I complain, you just give me some great nonsense to say you have this action and that action in place, but every day you see the same old problem being repeated. You know, after a day or two, the same old problem comes back. You know, all along the road you see is littered with debris. And then when some of the trucks cut in front of you, they actually threaten our safety. So Cheung Kwan O residents really suffer there. If you keep extending the Cheung Kwan O landfill, really, how do you propose to resolve all these problems? Mr. Wong, please pay attention to the plight and the suffering of the Cheung Kwan O residents. Now, the EPD tested PM 2.5. They take an average figure over a 24-hour period. Yeah, of course, if it's over 24 hours, you get good figures. Late at night, everybody's sleeping, no one is driving. Of course, there's no problem. I think you should take the readings during peak hours. You know, a few organizations, AirTech and so on, have done some tests, have taken readings along Whampoa Road. The highest figure reading was over 200 micrograms. That's 4 times above the standard. So Cheung Kwan O residents are suffering here if you just ignore our plight. Really, then I think it's not right. The Environment Bureau should close the Cheung Kwan O landfill, and landfill should not be closed to residential developments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Fong Yu-cheng. Good morning, Chairman, members, government officials. I would like to declare interest. I am a resident in Cheung Kwan O. I do not represent any organization. I do not speak for the government. I have moved into Tseung Kwan O because I thought that I would have a very good living environment, but traffic is very bad. There is always traffic congestion, even in Tseung Kwan O Tunnel. Even if I take the MTR, it takes me a long time. We're talking about a place with very bad facilities. It is not a good place for people to live. If you want to develop that place, you should think of some ways to offer us a good living environment. You owe us the warm or the heated pool. You just offer something small for us to accept your wrongdoing. You have done something wrong. Why don't you admit your mistake? I am now very angry. I am not reciting from any script. But if you talk about the Sai Kung District Council, they have appointed EDMS, an independent consultant, and also the Polytechnic U to do a study with 1.5 million. They have described the serious odor problem. In Tseung Kwan O, there are 140 odd sensitive receivers. In terms of wind direction, Tseung Kwan O, well, 60% of our winds are southwesterly wind. Odor from landfill in Tseung Kwan O directly affects Tseung Kwan O residents. This is a totally wrong decision. Landfill should be far away from residential dwellings. Building a landfill near residential dwellings is inhumane. According to the reports, Tseung Kwan O landfill is a major source of odor. Let's not talk about the vehicles around that area. The dust nuisance is serious, and a lot of threats are called to our lives. Even if we lose our lives, you won't think that it's a big deal. So I think the operation hours of the landfill should be shortened. It should be closed as soon as possible. In relation to waste disposal, I think this is really not a good method, and it is not good to our reputation. Government policies should be people-oriented. You should do something really for residents. You should do things in the best interest of residents. So please close down the Tseung Kwan O landfill. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fong. Ms. Luk Sao Ching, I would like to declare interest. I am not working for any waste disposal facility company, and I am not qualified to take up contracts from the government worth over 10 billion. I would like to recommend to the Bureau that the EPD office should be moved to Area 67 of Tseung Kwan O, to the new government building there. Then you can experience for yourself the odor problem there. Then you can do a very correct assessment of air quality impact of the landfill and also impacts on residents. You don't believe in what residents have said. If you really move in, then you can have first-hand experience. In 2006, in a electrical paper, you said that the life cycle of landfill is 13 years, 1994 to 2007. And then later you stated 2011, 2014, and then 2015. It's now 2014. You have used the landfill for 7 more years. So I would like to know what is the remaining capacity of the landfill. How many tons of refuse can be accommodated there? If you really work around the landfill, Secretary, you will know exactly how much time will it take to really saturate the landfill. Secretary, Director, please stand at the bus stop on Wanpo Road. Now, Dr. Chen Ying-lung at the Sai Kung District Council once said that every day there are 22 street cleansings, and the Wanpo Road is very clean with no dust. Actually, do you know where does the sand and silt go? It goes to the pavement. When we wait for a bus on the pavement, well, our pants are made dirty by all the dirty water. The sand and silt is on the pavement. People will slip because of this. And the dust is 2 inches thick. You can actually grow flowers and plants with the soil there. You have done so much superficial work. all the sand and silt is on the pavement. Why don't you clean them? And you ask the FEHD to clean the sand and silt, and then the DSD has to deal with the blocked drains and pipes. When there is heavy rain, there's always flood, and water will accumulate until it's 2-3 inches deep. So we're talking about 460,000 residents being affected. Secretary, I don't think public health should be compromised. So this proposal about 3+1 should be shelved, and the landfill should be closed. Next, Ms. Cynthia Lam. Good morning. I'm a social worker in Chang Kwan O. I'm a university graduate this year. My first job is to serve residents and the community. In my work, I have expectations on our society. My job has given me a lot of feelings. I now understand more about our society, especially about the landfill in Chang Kwan O. Many residents have complained to me that for a long term they have been subject to the landfill impact, and there's exceedance of level of PM2.5, and their health is being seriously affected. In 2006, there was a electrical paper, and according to the information on landfill, Chang Kwan O landfill was commissioned in 1994, and it should be terminated in 2007. Now it's already 2014. The government has not kept its word. This is not reasonable, and it is unjust. So now this proposal is about expanding the landfill. I think this approach is wrong. Secretary, I hope you will listen to residents. I hope you will listen to people and implement a correct solution. And Secretary, I hope that you will do a better job of waste management. The territory-wide waste reduction at source policy should be implemented properly. Secretary, I am of the view that the Chang Kwan O landfill should be closed down altogether. We should save our next generation. Thank you. Next, Mr.呂劍豪. Thank you, Chairman. I'm呂劍豪. I have lived in Chang Kwan O for 10 years. I am against the expansion of the landfill. Let me talk about traffic. There's no way to solve the traffic problem. Only the traffic problem. Let's not talk about expansion of landfill. Nearby residents are affected by pollution from heavy vehicles, so we always have to keep our windows closed, and we suffer from our respiratory tract allergy, and then there are 4,000 vehicle trips every day. During peak hours, there is serious congestion. I think this is reported on the newspapers as well. You can read the newspapers. The government said that Kwa Wan Bridge will be built, but so far, no work has been done yet. There is no way to mitigate the traffic problem, and MTR always runs out of order. So traffic problem has not been solved yet. So what are the necessary conditions for you to expand the landfill? Hong Kong is an international city. If you refer to Taiwan and Japan, they have incinerator. So why is it that in Hong Kong incinerator has not been built? In Kennedy Town in 1993, it's closed. The Lai Chi Kok one was closed in 1991. The Mui Wo facility was closed in 1994. The last one in Kwai Chung was closed in 1997. Now there is one in Tuen Mun, but that is for sludge treatment. So how come you haven't built a good incinerator for such a long time? But I want to remind you, incineration may not be the best way. The most important thing is recycling. Let me give an example. In Taiwan, the plastic water bottles have handled in such a way that the government helps NGOs to do recovery. The fiber tissues are extracted out to make blankets and cotton fabrics. So these can be given to social organizations and countries in the third world. We are an international city. Why is it that it has taken us so long? Still, we haven't done that. I hope the government can take a long-term view. Please don't be so short-sighted. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lo Man Him. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Secretary and members. I'm working in the environmental protection industry. I am also a community worker. I am a resident near the landfill. If I am to declare interest, I have a lot of things to declare. I want to turn to some factual points. A few days ago, a student approached me. He knew that I am in the environmental protection industry, so he had some questions for me. Is the waste problem in Hong Kong very serious? Is it necessary to expand the incinerator right away? I have cited some points from an article to answer his questions. Okay, number one, is the waste problem very urgent? The article states this. Actually, 26 years ago, this problem was there. And in 1986, the EPD set up and also compiled a number of important documents. The government actually understands the urgent nature of this problem. And they said that in 2010, the landfills will be saturated, but now it's 26 years already. So they amended the end of life cycle to 2012 and then 2018 and so on. This is really not understandable. About incinerators, the article states this. The effectiveness of incinerator will be reduced by 1/3 in the 6th year. In the Stonecutters Island, in the incinerator there, the cost per ton of refuse is $1,000. So in other words, incinerators are very costly. So if we build incinerator hastily, it's like burning money. After reading the papers, the student was really shocked. Do you know who wrote this article? The title is it really urgent to build incinerators? The author is the then Deputy Environment Manager of the Friends of the Earth. And in fact, the writer is Owen Chi. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Low. Next, Mr. Zhang. Good morning, Chairman and members. I'm a resident living near Chang Kwan O in Hongqing. I have been living there for 5 years. 5 years ago, I moved into the district. Every day, when there is the southwesterly wind or after heavy rain, so from time to time, I will smell strong refuse odor. It's a really very bad odor. You will throw up because of that. You have to close the windows. In less than 1 kilometer distance, there's an incinerator functioning. So that affects air quality in the district. Besides, every day, there are many refuse transporting vehicles using the Whampoa Road going into the landfill. So a lot of loud noise is generated. There is dust nuisance, there is sand and silt and so on, polluting the nearby streets. Residents' health is affected. So 5 years ago, from time to time, together with other Chang Kwan O residents, we took part in protests led by the then district councillor, Ms. Fong Kwok-shan. We hope that the government will stop expanding the Chang Kwan O landfill. Besides, the government has put in place road cleansing remedial measures like sprinkling of water, cleaning of road surface, stepping up prosecution of law breaching drivers. But then those measures are not effective. Very often we can see a lot of dust on Wanpo Road, a lot of broken debris was left on the road. So the passing by vehicles will be endangered. I hope that after this hearing, the government will seriously consider residents' requests and stop expanding the landfill. I would like to ask the government, you have received so many complaints in the past years about bad environment. Then did EPD think of ways to find some places far away from residential areas for landfills? Finally, I hope that members from different political parties to support Tseung Kwan O residents to object to the landfill expansion. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Next, Mrs. Ho. I'm a retired person. I have been living in Hong Sing for 5 years, and the landfill has been expanded 4 times in Tseung Kwan O. This damages residents' health seriously. Environmental hygiene is also affected. Air quality and traffic problem is bad. There's always congestion. There are 400,000 people in Tseung Kwan O, and it's less than 1,000 or 1 kilometer away from the landfill. I don't understand why the government still wants to expand it. If you look at the waste, odor, bacteria, construction waste, metal particulates, and so on, they cause a lot of nuisance and psychological stress to Tseung Kwan O residents. I just recovered from nasopharyngeal cancer, and so every day my nose is not comfortable because I have to clean it every day. In the past, I used 1 liter of sodium liquid to clean my nose. I can use it for 35 days. Now the air quality is very bad. With 1 liter of sodium solution, I would use up the solution in 10 days because I need to clean my nose 3 times a day. I live on the 50th floor, and I often see waste containers being uncovered. Now, I went for a revisit at the doctor. The doctor has examined me. It's good that my cancer has not relapsed, but then he said that my nose is very dirty. I don't understand why. I don't know how to answer him. A few years ago, the doctor told me that my nose is very clean, but after moving into the Tseung Kwan O district, my nose is very dirty. In the past, I was told that in 2013-2014, the landfill will be separated. I thought that the air would be better than in North Point, so that's why I moved into the district. But now it seems that the landfills won't be closed. According to LegCo Secretariat's information, the landfill was commissioned in 1994. It will be saturated in 2007 because we're talking about 100 hectares and 430,000 cubic meters of landfill. Now it's 2014. It's still not closed. The government is talking about expanding or building a new landfill. So I would like to appeal to you to help us. Secretary, please help residents, especially recovered patients. Unfortunately, I'm not a wealthy person. Well, if I am wealthy, I can move anytime I want. I'm just a small property owner. I am now a retiree. I hope that the landfill will be closed as soon as possible.
Mrs. Ying, I am a small flat owner in Lois Park. I would like to say that the government is wrong and the town planning board is also wrong. And then the Environment Bureau is also wrong. If there are 10 phases of Lois Park and then it will become another tycoon place, why are you expanding the landfills? perhaps you should stop selling land because the landfills are so close to the residents. Do you realize that? It is so close that I can take a taxi and I will be there very quickly. It is now called Area 101. If it's going to be saturated, please just let it go. Why are you expanding Area 137? Don't you realize that it is now a very nice place with birds and flowers? It's perfect for residential dwelling, but now you want to erect a landfill. We have been suffering for 3 decades already. Please just stop torturing us. In the past, not too many people live here. Now we have 500,000 population. For our health, we have to speak up because it is an invaluable asset of the residents. Remember, I have called RTHK and Mr. Wong Kam-shing was a guest. I hope that just like Singapore, we can erect landfills in isolated islands. And he said, no, that's not possible. It takes at least 10 years. If you started back then, you don't have to scratch your head so hard today. So previous secretaries did not want to do it, and Mr. Wong doesn't want to do it today. It may take another 10 years, and then you have to identify another site, and you have to expand further. There are so many small islands in Hong Kong. We need someone to take the lead and do assessment on one of the small islands instead of torturing Cheng Kwe residents. The operation of TKO landfill will be for 1994 to 2007. So please just let it go. I moved into TKO in 2009. And I waited and waited, and now you want to expand it by another 13 hectares. And you're saying that Whampoa Road is not sufficient to support transportation by water. Then please just move the landfill to an island. Landfills should never be located near residents. That is what we want. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Ying. Next is Mrs. Cho. I want to ask Mr. Wong, the secretary. TKO landfills and other landfills, why are they bundled together for discussion? I'm a resident of TKO. First of all, I want to talk about Whampoa Road. It may be called environmentally friendly road, but that is not true. We have so many vehicles and trucks coming into the landfill areas. You previously said there will only be about 1,000 such vehicles or such trips. If you look at Whampoa Road, anytime there are at least 20 such waste vehicles using the road. You talk about cleansing of the waste vehicles, but I realize that they are leaking water all the time. They are very dirty. They have waste stuck to the bottom of the vehicles. What about Whampoa Road? The surface of the roads are seriously damaged. There are many holes on the road, and there is endless maintenance work done. TKO is a new development area, and there's a lot of holes on the road, a lot of dredging, putting down of cables, and the number of lanes is always reduced. It's very dusty. It's very inconvenient. If I wear white, I have to take it off after half a day because it is covered with dust. And the noise from the vehicles is deafening. The government is talking about washing of the road surfaces. Yes, I do see that. But it doesn't make any difference. It does not help. There's the same amount of dust in the air. Those washing vehicles, they are washing the road like they are just peeing on the road. The frequency is not sufficient. If you really want to wash the road surface, you have to increase the frequency by a large extent. There are some unscrupulous drivers who are not covering up the vehicles. So debris is falling off all the time, and then pieces of concrete and reinforcement steel. Persecution is underway, as you said. Is that really happening? I don't think there's sufficient monitoring by the government. I don't believe there are prosecutions. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many uncovered waste vehicles moving on our streets. You also talked about reducing waste at source, and you want to expand Area 137 for construction waste so as to control odor. But it doesn't mean the air is clear. PM 2.5, is that improving? No. What about construction waste? There's no odor. What about heavy metals? Asbestos. They are all cancer-causing materials. Thank you.
Christian MSA from Clear the Air.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chairman. First of all, we would like to acknowledge all our fellow citizens from Chung Kwan O who came here to protest against this landfill next to residents. We would like to acknowledge you and thank you for coming today. Who came up with the blunder of building a landfill near a residence? Who came up with that? Do we see such thing in Europe or in America? No. Unfortunately, only in Hong Kong. And Clear the Air agrees with you, this landfill has to be closed for health reasons and for bad air. Absolutely. This is the first point. So we talk about blunder, and I'm afraid we must have another blunder with these integrated waste management facilities for Hong Kong. I'm really sorry, Mr. Wong. It must be a very difficult morning for you this morning. But things have to be said, and I'm going to be very detailed and brief at the same time. Not only don't we have any reduced waste policy, we don't have any waste separation facilities, we don't have any recycling facilities, everything has been said already. But what we are convinced is that the moving grade technology is a dying technology. It is less and less used in Europe. Why? Because recycling has been done, and to complement recycling, many incinerators are closing and plasma gasification is used because it's clean and because it allows to clean landfills. We talk about landfill mining. Some of us have said that landfills are forever. It's not true. Plasma gasification allows to dig into landfills and restore the landfills into a clean state. This is done in Belgium, this is done in Germany, and it's also done in some part of England. So we are imposed a dying technology moving rate. New York City issued a tender for waste management facilities recently and said clearly we do not want moving rate technology. So the question is, why is Hong Kong violently going into a way where nobody goes, right? There's another thing that is not addressed here, is the amount of toxic ashes. This incinerator will produce, and nobody talks about it, this incinerator will produce 30% of weight of toxic ashes, right? What is going to be done? Well, we know what is going to be done. We heard from sectors of the industry, man-made island will be built on the sea to bury toxic ashes. Is that a blunder? What kind of legacy do we leave for the next generation? I'm afraid we do not have any waste policy today in the medium term, not in the long term, if we go on like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Kerry Chen from Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. We support the users' pay policy, and we are dedicated to urging the government to implement comprehensive waste management policies. We welcome recent policies on recycling and reusing waste. We urge the government to complete infrastructural facilities to support the management of waste. We have actually submitted our written submissions to the government. The existing policies are not well positioned. Today, we only rely on landfills to deal with municipal waste every day. Without other options, expansion seems to be the only viable solution. We would like to see the government introduce more measures to reduce the adverse impact from landfills on the environment and nearby residents. The Chamber would like to stress that expansion plan is only for the shorter term because over-reliance of landfills is not sustainable. It is not well accepted by the community. The government, on top of existing measures, should also identify new ways to manage waste. Incineration can effectively deal with waste. We can turn waste into energy, but our existing technology is really lagging behind. In November 2013, there was a survey conducted, and 70.4% of the interviewed people support the construction of incinerator. This is an increase of 15.2% compared to a previous survey. An integrated package would take 7 years before commissioning. We urge the government to collaborate with LegCo to propel forward this plan as soon as possible. We can use expansion as a shorter-term means, while focusing on the longer term in terms of integrated waste management system. Thank you.
Tim Pyson-Smith from the British Chamber of Commerce, please.
Thank you, Chairman Ho, the Administration, EA panel members and fellow deputations. The British Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong has, since 2005, supported a multi-pronged approach to dealing with the approximately 9,000 tonnes per day of solid waste. And the Chamber supports the recent organic composting and waste electrical and electronic waste management initiatives to deal with those forms of waste. In terms of the request by the administration to provide an opinion on the extension of the 3 landfills and the building of a single incinerator, the British Chamber of Commerce remains of the view that a holistic solution to the issue of waste management is required. This includes, in priority order, reduction at source, recovery, recycling, in concert with the provision of new environmental infrastructure, such as the first municipal waste-to-energy incinerator, and the minimal short-term extension of landfill capacity, notably outside the country park boundaries. This in no way should be interpreted or recorded by the government as a carte blanche acceptance of the 3+1 from the British Chamber of Commerce. However, the British Chamber of Commerce does support the use of moving grate technology, incineration with waste recovery, waste energy recovery for Hong Kong's domestic waste as the most appropriate solution for the treatment of the large daily volumes of domestic waste at this point in time. However, the British Chamber of Commerce questions why, if there is genuinely an urgent need, as stated by the administration, for an immediate solution, that a 3-year additional time frame is required to form the chosen remote artificial island at Shek Kwu Chau. The British Chamber of Commerce further questions the administration regarding the significantly greater capital cost of approximately 5 billion Hong Kong dollars to be borne by the community to build this artificial island to deliver this urgent infrastructure. Perhaps the use of the other site at Chun Mun, assessed favourably in the Integrated Waste Treatment Facility, EIA, would result in a swifter and more prudent use of funds.
Thank you, Mr. Pyson-Smith. 第二位呢係
Next speaker, Mr. Chow Mei Hong from Youth Committee of Professional Power. We have had so many such public hearings last year and also this year, and there are fewer and fewer members attending, whether it is a secretary or LegCo members. I think you more than understand the sufferings of TKO residents. Concerning the TKO landfill issue, I remember Ms. Christine LAM has told us, acting like she felt regretful that there are no options but to expand the landfills. Does it mean that TKO residents should sacrifice? such sacrificial spirit. Is it correct? Is it applicable? TKO is not a small community. We have a population reaching 500,000. It is densely populated. There are more and more people moving in. We continue to develop this place. The government continues to sell land and attracting more people to move in, and the EB is expanding the landfills at the same time. So among different bureaus, is there any coordination? Every 15 people in Hong Kong would have one person living in TKO. If you plan to develop this place, you should not dump waste or treat waste in the same area. Otherwise, let's relocate all the TKO residents. We have already sacrificed in the past for more than 20 years. This is the consequence of wrongful planning. As other people have already pointed out, time and again the Bureau has given us false hope. Sometimes they will say they will be closed in 2007, then you talk about extortion, and you expanded it to 2010, now you're telling us 2015. We keep believing in you. And today you are being superimposed, saying you want to continue to sacrifice TKO residents further. I believe that is really unfair and unjust. Finally, I would like to ask Mr. Wong, with such strong objection from the community, you probably understand that the TKO residents will continue to fight the battle. Before we occupy Central, perhaps we can occupy the Bureau or the landfills. If you receive endorsement for the expansion plan, what is your other alternative? I'm sorry I got the order wrong. We should invite Mr. Philip Fan first from Chinese General Chamber of Commerce. After hearing so many views today, I feel bad for Mr. Wong. For a very long time, the Environmental Bureau has not discharged the duties, or they have adopted the wrong policies, bringing you to today's difficult dilemma. The latest plan, unfortunately, I believe it is also insufficient. According to the plan, if things are implemented according to the plan, in a decade's time, in 10 years, 20% of the waste will have to be dumped in the landfills. Around the world, we already prove in advanced areas and countries that other than recycling and waste reduction, 90% of the remaining waste will be incinerated. So less than 1% will end up in the landfills. Facing that fact, we need to expedite incineration of waste and reduce the amount of waste going into the landfills. That is the right way. Unfortunately, according to our plan, even if we do reclamation in Shakuchao, we need to spend a lot of money. Another gentleman has already pointed out this artificial island in Shakuchao will add another 5 billion to the budget. And the time frame will include 3 years spent on reclamation. According to a previous survey, Zhangzhou may be another good location for this incinerator facility. If we choose that option, we don't need to go through reclamation. We can save 5 billion. We can save time. So why don't we subsidize Tuen Mun residents? Because they are taking up the responsibility or this extra burden. Perhaps we can subsidize them so that they will object less, and we can move ahead with incineration as soon as possible. Perhaps that is the best way. I also object bundling things together. Reclamation in Shekuchao and landfill expansion is bundled together, wasting time and money. In mainland China, many landfills have been erected and they are very cheap.
Thank you. Secretary, any response, please? Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, residents and deputations. I've heard your views. The government takes a serious view of waste management. As you heard, last year we published a 10-year blueprint to deal with this long-standing problem, when we propose a waste reduction, handling, recycling of food waste, and use of appropriate technology in improving the operation of landfills and addressing their various concerns about hygiene and other nuisance problems. And also we have long-term planning for the use of different technologies across the territory. That is, at different locations, how we could make long-term planning. That is, in the long run, we could eventually align ourselves with the Euro standard, that is zero waste generation. Now, to achieve a waste reduction, we need the relevant technologies and other facilities to make that happen. I'm sure we all endorse the Euro standard, but then this is not something we could achieve in the near term. As you know, in Hong Kong, when we want to embark upon any infrastructure projects, it takes a long lead time and so on. In Europe, it took 30 years. The government and the business sector and the citizens work very closely together to make that happen. In Hong Kong, there is a need for in-transition arrangement, as some deputations pointed out. But I think we all share the same goal, that is, we want to reduce waste, we want to promote recycling, and so that we could face up to this challenge. Thank you. Originally, this meeting is supposed to end at 12:45 because some of the speakers did not turn up, so we have 10 minutes now. Perhaps I could open the floor to members so they could give a brief response. Can you please raise your hand so I know how much time I could give each of you? So 3 minutes each, please, okay? Mr. Albert Chen and then Mr. James. So now draw the line there, okay, if you don't raise your hands now. 2 questions, Madam Chair. I've talked to the government for over 20 years about this. One is about mandatory separation at source. The administration kept evading this issue. I think we are at least 20 years behind the international community here. On incineration, yes, to some extent it's a targeted approach, but then the technology you are introducing, again, that's way behind the international standard. I think this morning at both sessions, some deputations proposed high-temperature incineration and then the manufacture of construction materials from the waste. Must we keep lagging behind the international community in dealing with waste, and then we end up being the laughing stock in the international community? Secretary, second question first. Some members went with the Bureau to Europe to explore this issue. I think if you went on the visit, you would know exactly the answer to Mr. Albert Chen's question. Some mentioned gasification technology. It's not a new technology either. It's been around for some time. As for the proposed moving grate technology, over the last decade, European Union has actually raised the moving grade standard by a substantial amount or extent. Now, we are just saying that we adopt the Euro standard as the basis, but then we've actually higher standards than Euro standard. It's not a case of the technology being outdated. That's not really the discussion. We asked the European government what sort of incinerators they use. They use the same technology in other places because they want to reduce carbon emission. They may be inclined to choose other options like gasification. But then if they found out what the situation in Hong Kong is like, they are clear. Even the experts or other governments they all believe the government has made the right choice with this particular technology. On separation of source, we have to do it step by step. We have a blueprint. We say we need support facilities. We also need a waste charging scheme. So we need to meet different conditions, and then we can take things forward step by step. I still have a bit of time left. Secretary, I think there's one figure we all know. The average household waste production in Hong Kong is 2 times more than that in Taiwan and Korea. So if you do not do separation at source, then Hong Kong generates the highest amount of waste per capita. That's shame on Hong Kong. It's because the government's not doing a proper job. That's why we have to suffer the shame. Now, we are doing something about separation of source, indeed. Well, just now the residents and deputations observed the 3-minute rule, so I don't want officials and members to break the rule. Otherwise, it won't be fair to those who have come to give their views. By way of information, in early March, we went to Europe for a study visit. On the 26th of March, the Secretariat will display our findings there at the canteen, and then eventually findings will be moved to the lobby, so the public will be able to see what we've done and seen. Mr. James Toh. Well, I went on the visit, Madam Chair. The incinerator is actually a power generation plant. The incineration technology now is so different from that 3 decades ago, for instance. But then, during the visit, I learned one thing. I think what Mr. Albert Cheng said makes sense. In some places, there's mandatory separation of waste at source. Now, if waste is not separated, actually it won't be incinerated or dumped at landfills. That's the approach in other places. Maybe in Hong Kong, we should do something like that. Now, we met with some ministers in Europe. They said their citizens are even ahead of the government in terms of their mindset. So if the government doesn't do a proper job with environmental protection, the government will be voted out of office because the people are way ahead of them in their mindset. So I think in Hong Kong we need to be shown that you are taking a multi-pronged approach. So you instill confidence in people. Then people know that you are just not relying on one particular option while slighting the other options. And of course, you mustn't just focus on one district or area, because then those affected in the district will feel really aggrieved. So we believe mandatory separation of source is equally important. There's no question of what is more important. So we can't allow you to press ahead with the landfills and so on first without doing something about mandatory sourcing, separation of source. Now, you have to tell the public you're doing everything in one go. But is it the case that you will fail in all these measures? No, but I think if you bundle everything, all the measures in one package, then people will believe that you are determined about addressing the problem once and for all. Well, I'm sure members have their own views about waste per capita in Hong Kong being on the high side. Perhaps people have different views about recycling. That's why we should proceed with waste charging scheme. Now, we've completed the consultation. We're waiting for the report. By about 2016, we will proceed with legislation, and that will be earlier than the completion of the incinerator. Okay, so we'll wrap up the session here. Please come back at 2 p.m. I would like to thank the residents and deputations for coming again. Thank you.